I'm not going to try to defend Biden here, because I know that many of you watching don't want to hear it. Instead, I want to show you the alternative. If you are pro-Palestine to the extent that Biden's handling of Israel has made you decide not to support him, then I want you to see what Trump's policy on lack of support for Israel, not opposing Israel, lack of support for Israel, will be if he gets elected. Here's a little sneak peek hint. It rhymes with reportation. Anyway, here is a clip from Trump's recent speech. If you think Biden is bad on Israel and Palestine, Trump is 1,000 million trillion times worse, and you do not want Trump taking his place in 2024.
Under Biden, we have not one but two immigration disasters. We have one on the border, and we have one in the Biden State Department, which is admitting colossal amounts of jihadists into our communities and campuses and our refugees.
He means Arabic Muslims when he says jihadists, by the way. And to be clear, Islam, like the religion, is not the thing that Republicans are mad about. If you're like a white guy who's a practicing Muslim, they don't give a shit about you. They're not afraid of you. They're afraid of Arabic people. They're afraid of brown people from Muslim majority countries, which tend to be Arabic. Obviously not always, because there are many Muslim majority countries all around the world. It's the world's biggest religion. But when the Republicans think about it, and when we think about it from terms of American immigration, we think the Middle East. We think Northern Africa. We think like Iraq, well, not really, not as much Iraq, but Afghanistan to a degree, especially since the pullout, and like Iran, although probably not as much soon now that we're kind of in big tensions with them, but there are a lot of Iranian immigrants. We think about the Middle East, right? And we think about immigrants in the Middle East. And those groups are what the Republicans are trying to fearmonger about. They call them jihadists. They call them terrorists. They call them invaders. They call them illegals. They use scary sounding words to describe it. Refugees is even a dirty word to these people.
Our communities and campuses and our refugee programs. That's why you see all of these big demonstrations in New York, in Chicago. Nobody can believe what's taking place. They're letting them in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. We cannot allow that to happen, and we don't want to be like Europe with jihads on every corner. That's why
we don't want to be like Europe with jihads on every corner. So is he just explicitly using the term jihad to refer to like Arabic people? That's fucking crazy. He has gone way more mask off than ever before, by the way, guys. When you hear him speak at his big like public speeches, they're just like borderline Hitler speeches.
So I instituted what we call the Trump travel ban, and it was an amazing success. It was suspended immediately upon his coming into the country. And I never talked about this for 4 years. I never mentioned it. We didn't have one incident in 4 years because we kept bad people the hell out of our...
We didn't have one incident in 4 years? What? There were numerous acts of Islamic terror that happened while Trump was president, for starters, and there were numerous other acts of terrorism that happened while Trump was president, too. There was a spike in far-right terror. Like, his supporters contributed to the spike in political terrorism under his presidency.
Not one instance. I didn't want to say it during the 4 years because I didn't want to walk out of the speech and have something happen, right? I'll also be implementing strong ideological screenings for...
Did Trump just say that if he said a thing bad about terrorists or something, that, like, there'd be a higher chance of him getting attacked by terrorists? He's the president. He's, like, the biggest target for terrorists ever.
If you hate America, if you want to abolish Israel, if you sympathize with jihadists, then we don't want you in our country, and you're not going to be getting into our country.
Hey, guys, are you starting to think maybe Biden's a bit better about Israel and Palestine? I'm starting to think Biden might be a little better about Israel and Palestine than Trump.
I will cancel the student visas of Hamas and sympathizers on college campuses. The college campuses are being taken over. And all of the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protest this month,
I don't even know what to say. I'm just letting it play.
Come 2025, We will find you and we will deport you. We will deport you.
He is running on a policy of deporting people who criticize Israel and sympathize with Palestine, labeling them terrorists, and locking down immigration. Hamas's student visas. He means locking down student visas for any immigrants coming from Muslim-majority countries, is what he means by Hamas student visas. He means student visas for students that came here with student visas from Muslim-majority countries. This is him acknowledging, at the very least, the majority of illegal immigration is actually people overstaying work visas, not crossing over the border he wants to build a dumbass wall on.
In the past 3 weeks, crooked Joe Biden has turned a blind eye to the greatest outbreak of anti-Semitism in American history. You have the greatest. I call up friends of mine
Silent
who happen to
audience.
be Jewish. I say, are you watching what's going on? And they're actually frightened. These are some pretty strong people. They're tough people. They're frightened. Their kids are afraid to go to school. And they never had that before. But in our colleges, media...
They've never had that before. Yeah, Jewish people, they've never had that before. But with this whole, people, being sympathetic to Palestinians in Palestine thing, we've seen anti-Semitism happening for the first time ever. It's crazy that all of a sudden anti-Semitism exists because the left is sympathetic to these Palestinians. Isn't that crazy? It's happening now for the first time ever. It's real. The left said it was real before and it was fake then, but now it's real and it's the left who's doing it.
And even government, nobody's ever seen anything like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, who openly campaign against Israel. Nobody's ever seen this before. When asked recently about rising anti-Semitic hate, Joe Biden's own press secretary had nothing to say about the rabid mobs in the street, and they're shouting, kill the Jews, and she had nothing to say. In fact,
There were no mobs of people in the street chanting kill the Jews other than Trump supporters. The fact is that this is just another instance of Republicans basically just claiming that when people protest against something that they like, it is mobs of people, angry, mouths foaming, all sorts of different adjectives they can negatively describe it as. But when they protest, even when it's getting people killed, it's just patriots using their First Amendment rights, even when people are literally dying because of guys that are supporting their cause.
When I get back into office, I will put every single university and college president on notice. The American taxpayer will not subsidize the creation of terrorist sympathizers on American soil.
Basically, he's going to shut down the colleges, is what he's saying.
Colleges and universities will purge the anti-Semitism and pro-terrorism. What you're doing, the terrorism, the pro-terrorism is so out of control. Nobody's ever seen.
He's just stringing together bullshit, and he's stumbling now because he's not he hasn't thought ahead on anything. He's just trying to get as many claps as possible until his time's up.
Or they will lose their accreditation and every last penny of federal student loans. It will not be paid to them, probably shouldn't be paid to them anyway. Never forget, the same radicals tearing down posters of Israeli hostages, can you imagine, at our university, ripping them right off the wall, I couldn't believe it, are the ones tearing down statues of our American heroes, defunding our police, destroying.
I like this. The ones who do insert bad thing are also the same ones who do insert good thing. Ah, yes. Of course they aren't the same people. It's that in their worldview, there's this amalgam blur of the woke, the left, right? And one college student in New York doing a thing, they're the same part of the same group in their world as a college student in California doing another thing.
The United States and Israel represent the pinnacle of Western civilization, which is exactly what these people want to destroy. They want to destroy it. This is why those who chant death to Israel also chant always death to America. Do you ever notice? They always put them together, and that's why American patriots and supporters of Israel, and you have tremendous support in this country, I can tell you that, must stick together. Come hell or high water, you have to stick together. We must have strong borders, strong military, strong families, strong cultures, and above all,
I mean, I don't like to be the one that drops Hitler every time, but come on. These are literally the things that Hitler built his platform on.
For 4 years, you didn't have any of these problems. Think of it. You wouldn't have Ukraine. You wouldn't have Israel being attacked.
Okay, minimum bolts.
You wouldn't have inflation. You wouldn't have anything.
You wouldn't have Israel being attacked if he was president, and you wouldn't have inflation. Amazing. Yeah, obviously Trump is going to take credit for the economy being good for the 3 years before COVID when he was inheriting Obama's economic reforms, and blaming Biden for all of his economic reforms and what he did with, like, name one Trump policy that helped the economy. Trick question. You can't. There are none. Nothing he did helped the economy. Nothing he did helped the economy in relation to Biden. His restrictions on immigration hurt the economy. His tariffs on other countries' trades hurt the country's economy because he put tariffs on materials used for manufacturing here, which ended up causing us here, not us technically, our manufacturers here, to pay more, which justified them raising prices domestically for us to pay for those products. The steel tariffs were one of the best examples of this. Trump supporters still tout that as like some epic good thing that Trump did, and it's like, that was literally unanimously agreed upon by all economists as one of the dumbest things Trump ever did for the economy. But they really don't care. They don't understand the economy, and if they did, they don't give a shit.